Growing up, I was always an overweight child. I've always been bigger than other kids, and while my peers were still figuring out what made them distinctive, my size had already marked me as different. As I grew older, the weight I carried became more visible. By high school, I was indisputably overweight, and my shape served as a continuous reminder of my differences. College wasn't much different. While some peers began to find themselves or explore new aspects of their identities, I remained stuck in the same box, overweight and occasionally fighting with it. Being the bigger kid exposed me to relentless ridicule. Classmates teased me mercilessly, their insults eating away at my self-worth until I felt hollow inside. They'd call me names, tell cruel jokes where I was always the punchline. I was constantly excluded from games, parties, and gatherings, always on the outside looking in, watching everyone else experience the normal ups and downs of childhood and adolescence from a distance I couldn't breach. These years of bullying warped how I saw myself. I retreated into books, losing myself in literature and stories that offered escape. I became known as the nerd, another label I didn't particularly enjoy. My younger sister Bonnie was my polar opposite. Only a year younger, she possessed an effortless charisma that drew others to her like moths to flame. She thrived in social situations while I shrank into corners. She could walk into a room and instantly have everyone smiling, laughing, and absolutely captivated. Bonnie didn't just make friends easily, she seemed to have this magnetic ability to get people to do whatever she wanted, as if she were the sun around which everyone orbited. Despite our differences, I adored her. I took my role as her older sister seriously, feeling fiercely protective whenever she needed it. When she began attending my high school, I was initially thrilled. Being Bonnie's older sister gave me a sense of purpose, as if I had a special place in her life. But as Bonnie settled into high school and crafted her own identity, things began to shift dramatically. She started to notice the divide between us, how differently we were treated. While I was the bookish, quiet kind, she was vivacious and popular, quickly establishing herself among the cool crowd. I watched as she became increasingly aware of my quirks and insecurities, which had already branded me as uncool. Then came the betrayal that still stings when I think about it. Bonnie began to deliberately distance herself from me. At first, she would simply ignore me at school. That hurt. It genuinely wounded me that my own sister saw me as beneath her. I tried to accept her decision, even though it felt like losing not just a sister but a friend. But gradually, something worse happened. Bonnie stopped merely ignoring me and began actively associating with people who tormented me. Bonnie and her friends would seize any opportunity to humiliate me. Whenever we crossed paths in the hallways or at lunch, they'd taunt me in front of other students or, worse, try to trip me as I walked past with my lunch tray just to make everyone laugh. I was constantly on guard, trying to avoid not just my peers' cruelty but the humiliation inflicted by my own flesh and blood. The betrayal cut deeper than any schoolyard bully ever could. When Bonnie invited friends over, they'd invade my private space without warning. They'd burst into my room without knocking, then laugh and point at my body. They'd hurl insults like geek and fatty as casually as discussing the weather. I felt like an exhibit in a zoo, their entertainment for the afternoon. In my own room, my sanctuary, I felt small and alien. I tried explaining this to my parents several times, hoping they'd recognize how difficult it was for me to handle Bonnie's behavior. But each time I brought it up, they dismissed my concerns with a smile and defended her actions. "This is how siblings bond," they'd say. "Bonnie's just playing around." They insisted it was harmless teasing, even suggesting I loosen up and stop taking everyone's taunts so seriously. "You're older," they'd remind me. "Be more patient and resilient." So I faced years of bullying not just from peers but from my own sister, and my concerns were repeatedly invalidated by my parents. It made me feel isolated, as if no one in my own family understood how deeply their words wounded me. The only time I ever felt truly noticed by our parents was when I brought home report cards. Academics came naturally to me, and I grew accustomed to receiving high marks. It became the one area where I felt superior, the one way I could make my parents proud. My parents loved boasting about my accomplishments to friends and relatives, portraying me as the family scholar, as if my grades were proof of their excellent parenting. But Bonnie resented the comparisons. She wasn't academically gifted and had no desire to be. Our parents' constant reminders of my academic success made her increasingly hostile. In retaliation, Bonnie would sometimes sabotage my schoolwork. She'd sneak into my room late at night and steal my homework, often right before a major assignment was due. I'd wake up the next morning to find my perfectly completed work missing. Panic would set in as I frantically searched through my books and papers, growing more anxious with each passing minute. And there she'd be, leaning against my doorway with that smirk, savoring every second of my distress. To her, it was a small victory, a way to knock me down a peg and remind me I wasn't untouchable. She knew how much my grades meant to me, how much of my self-worth I had invested in them, and she delighted in disrupting that part of my life. I only discovered this treachery years later when she drunkenly confessed one evening. My relationship with Bonnie has mellowed over time, but we're still far from close. The sibling bond that others often enjoy never fully developed between us. After graduation, I moved away and built a new life in another city with an exciting career. Our communications dwindled to occasional calls or texts. So when I scheduled a summer visit home last year, I was genuinely excited to see everyone. It had been ages since we'd all gathered as a family, and I looked forward to reconnecting. But nothing went as planned. Our family lunch started pleasantly enough. Everyone seemed happy to see me, and for a brief moment, it felt like old times. That changed when Bonnie unexpectedly announced her engagement. None of us saw it coming, and initially, we thought she was joking. But it became immediately clear she was serious when she proudly extended her hand, displaying a stunning ring. I couldn't help but comment on how exquisite it was, genuinely happy that she'd found someone who loved her. Almost as soon as the congratulations died down, Bonnie turned to me with a predatory gleam in her eye. "I can't help but say this," she started, her lips curling into that familiar smirk. "But why are you still fat? If your life is truly amazing, shouldn't you have lost weight by now?" Her words felt like a physical blow, reawakening old insecurities I thought I'd buried. The room fell uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my response. I merely shrugged and tried to laugh awkwardly, but my parents immediately joined the attack. They began discussing how I was still obese and unmarried, expressing their concern that I would never have children. The humiliation burned through me as they spoke. My accomplishments, the career I'd built, the life I'd crafted in another city, none of it seemed to matter to them. They fixated solely on my weight and my lack of a family. As they continued their criticism, their comments cut deeper than I could have imagined. I'd spent years discovering myself, building confidence, but in those moments, I felt like that same nervous, awkward teenager desperate for my family's approval. My parents then congratulated Bonnie for getting engaged before me, gushing with pride. To them, I was the lesser child, successful, but not in the ways that truly mattered. What should have been a joyful family reunion quickly morphed into a painful reminder of old wounds. Bonnie pressed on with her interrogation, "So when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a boyfriend?" She was openly mocking me in front of everyone. My parents eagerly joined in, agreeing it was high time for me to find someone before it's too late. They pointed out how Bonnie, being younger, was settling down while I, the older one, was wasting my life away at work. I tried to argue that I loved my life as it was, that my career and freedom fulfilled me. "I'm content just the way I am," I told them, but my words seemed to bounce off them. My mother gave me a sharp look and sneered, "What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" As if happiness couldn't exist outside of marriage or family. Sitting there, I felt that familiar sensation of being misunderstood, my life choices dismissed. I'd come home seeking connection but received only judgment and mockery instead. Bonnie smirked and delivered the final blow. "I expect you to at least have a +1 by the time my wedding rolls around." She laughed and continued, "I don't want people thinking my sister is some old, miserable woman all alone while I'm getting married." The comment stung like venom. I simply shook my head and assured her I'd try. That's when my parents spoke up again. "Bonnie's wedding is almost a year away. Even if you can't find a partner, you could at least try to lose weight and look more presentable for her wedding." They suggested that shedding pounds would make it easier for me to attract a partner. Bonnie enthusiastically agreed. "Yeah, I want you to lose a few pounds at least, she remarked casually, as if doing me a favor. I sat there stunned and humiliated, with an ache I hadn't felt in years. How could my family talk to me like this? Did I truly deserve their hateful words simply because I was overweight? I wanted to defend myself but felt frozen, unable to find the right words. Their statements transported me back to high school, to those painful times when my weight made me a target. When I returned home from the family visit, I hurled myself into weight loss with an intensity one didn't know I possessed. It began as a way to prove something to my family, but gradually became deeply personal. I joined a gym, followed a strict diet, and hired a personal trainer who had undergone her own transformation. She created a routine specifically for my goals and encouraged me every step of the way. For the first time, everything clicked. I started losing weight steadily, and as the pounds fell away, I felt lighter both physically and mentally. My confidence skyrocketed. I'd always assumed losing weight wouldn't affect my life much, but I was wrong. People treated me differently, strangers were kinder, friends and colleagues viewed me with newfound respect. My new body inspired a complete style overhaul. I filled my closet with items I'd only dreamed of wearing before. I even got a bold hair makeover, going blonde with a daring cut I would have been too afraid to try previously. Looking in the mirror became an encounter with a stranger, a version of myself I never knew existed. I felt proud of how far I'd come, not just because I lost weight but because I gained confidence. With Bonnie's wedding just 2 weeks away, my family invited me to fly down for lunch to finalize plans for her special day. But I dreaded returning home, afraid of being ridiculed again, especially now that I finally felt good about myself. I didn't even want to attend Bonnie's wedding anymore, knowing how she and my parents had treated me. Yet I knew skipping the wedding would unleash their fury and lectures about how family is family and how I must be present for Bonnie's big day regardless of my feelings. Update 1. Wow, I'm overwhelmed by everyone's response. Some of your suggestions are truly hilarious. I can't believe you're encouraging me to show up and mess with my sister now that I've transformed myself. Growing up as the fat kid demolished my self-esteem. I struggled with self-doubt for years, always believing I wasn't good enough. But reading your responses has been a game changer. You've helped me see myself in a completely new light, and I'm finally feeling more confident than ever. I'm seriously considering showing up to my family's lunch to shock them. They haven't seen me in ages, and since I don't use social media, they have no idea how much weight I've lost. Their reactions should be interesting. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, you're not prepared for this update. Grab your popcorn because things just got wild. I decided to fly down for lunch with my family. I thought when they saw me, they'd be proud of my transformation. After all, they pushed me into it. Surely they'd be overjoyed to see the positive changes and finally recognize my effort. When I walked into my parents' house, their jaws literally dropped. They stared at me, stunned, as if they couldn't believe I was the same person. After a moment of shocked silence, they stammered, wondering if it was really me. I gave them a big hug, thrilled with their reaction. They showered me with compliments, saying how beautiful I looked and how they couldn't believe the transformation. But when Bonnie arrived, everything shifted. She didn't notice me at first, ignoring me as she'd done countless times before. When I stood to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes widening in shock. She gave a strange, forced laugh before reaching over and pressing her fingers against my stomach, as if needing physical proof I'd actually lost the weight. As lunch progressed, the conversation revolved entirely around my makeover. Bonnie and my parents bombarded me with questions, marveling at how different I appeared. Their voices dripped with surprise, as if they'd never imagined I could look any other way. Bonnie kept saying she never expected me to change so dramatically. Then she dropped this gem: "When I first asked you to lose weight, I never expected you to look this pretty. I didn't even know you had that jawline and those ankles beneath all that fat." I paused, struggling to maintain my composure, and smiled tightly before responding, "Bonnie, I've always been pretty. Losing weight just enhanced my features." But Bonnie insisted there was something more distinctly different about me. Then she had the audacity to ask, "Did you have some surgeries done? Because there's no way you look this good by yourself." I felt my blood beginning to boil. The nerve to suggest I needed surgery to look attractive when I'd worked so hard. I looked her directly in the eyes and replied, "Wow, Bonnie, it's amazing that you think that little of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love, something you might want to try sometime." Bonnie's expression morphed from surprise to displeasure, but I didn't care. It felt incredible to finally stand up for myself. Before she could react, my parents intervened, trying to smooth things over in their typical way. "You shouldn't be offended," my mother said. "We've just never seen you look this way before. Honestly, you look even more beautiful now than Bonnie does, and she's the one getting married." Bonnie's face darkened with rage after Mom's comment. I simply ignored her and focused on my food, allowing my sister to seethe. Then my mother added, "You know, I was thinking maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I think you'd look even better with your natural shade. This blonde look makes you stand out too much." Bonnie and my father quickly agreed. "Bonnie has always been the blonde daughter of the family, and you are the brunette," my dad said. "So it would be a good idea for you to go back to your original hair color. It might make you look more like yourself." I was stunned. Suddenly, the three of them were ganging up on me, trying to diminish my new confidence. My stylist had suggested blonde because it complemented my skin tone. It had nothing to do with trying to outshine my sister. I could understand Bonnie's jealousy, but my parents' reaction confused me. They had wanted me to be presentable for Bonnie's wedding, but now that I was, they couldn't accept who I'd become. Instead of celebrating my progress, they were undermining me. "What's your problem?" I finally demanded. "Why can't I be blonde too? Does my sister own that color or something?" I paused, irritation bubbling over. "No, she doesn't. I can be blonde or brunette, it's my choice. Why does it even matter to you?" My mother scoffed, claiming I was deliberately trying to undermine Bonnie's wedding by attempting to stand out. Bonnie chimed in, "With your weight loss, you're already going to stand out. Do you really need to take my hair color too?" My father, predictably, agreed with them, telling me I was being difficult and that, as Bonnie's sister, I should be more accommodating. That's when something inside me snapped. "You know what? I'm done with this," I said, the words burning as they left my lips. "The three of you are so caught up in your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. The truth is, I've always been amazing just the way I am, but none of you ever saw it. Now, even after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it's never enough." They just stared at me, and I realized I was done holding back. "Since you all have so much to say about me, I think it's time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you love to give me." I turned to my mother first, feeling the words surge inside me like a flood. "Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes and your lips. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth, and honestly, it's just disgusting to me." I gave her a second to react before turning to my father. "Dad," I said with a stern voice, "you're bald. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair?" His face stiffened, but I wasn't finished. Finally, I turned to Bonnie. "And you, don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling. But now, with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours." Bonnie's face flushed with shame, and she looked like she might burst into tears at any moment. I raised my glass, downed my drink in one go, and walked out with a smirk, leaving them all stunned and speechless. I couldn't believe those words had come from my mouth, but I didn't regret them one bit. They deserved to be humiliated after years of criticizing me. After lunch, I flew straight back home. I had no intention of staying for Bonnie's wedding. Since then, my phone has been flooded with voicemails and texts from my parents and Bonnie. They've been calling me disrespectful and foul-mouthed for how I spoke to them and for simply leaving. Mom even insists that I fly back down to attend Bonnie's wedding because it won't look good to her in-laws if I don't. Update 3. So I ended up skipping Bonnie's wedding. Thanks to all of your suggestions, instead of returning home, I treated myself to an impromptu stay at a 5-star resort. Honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've made in years. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy, no drama or pressure, just pure enjoyment. I treated myself to a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and explored new places in the city I'd been longing to visit. I've also blocked my relatives so they can't contact me again. I'm exhausted from their bullying and want to avoid all the toxicity and drama. Right now, my focus is entirely on self-care. Thank you for reading my story. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.